All right, everybody, thanks for coming to the Professional Connection Forum. I'm Eliza Heidelberg. I work as a department intern with Dr. Ford, and Jo Beth Dodd's back there. She's working with us this semester. We have two great speakers for you today. We have Daniel Morgan, who works in the Career Center. He's the senior coordinator. And we have Joe Lee, who's the editor-in-chief and owner of the Dogwood Press, located in Jackson, correct? So they're just going to tell you a little bit about how they got to where they are, and then at the end we're going to open it up to questions if y'all want to ask them anything, get advice from them. So y'all give them a warm welcome.
Hey there, I want to thank Dr. Ford and Eliza and Jo Beth. It's good to be with you all. I am a fellow Bulldog, 1987 vintage communication major, and a first generation Bulldog. My son John is sitting right back there. He's a second generation Bulldog and a communication major. I've got a handout that I think all of y'all have. Let me hit just a little bit about what I do professionally. I'm not going to sit here and drone on and on about and read to you everything verbatim. I want to tell you some stories that I think you might enjoy and might benefit you a little bit. I'm a professional multitasker. I'm a book publisher. Did that beginning in 2002. I am an 8-time published author. I come from a background in radio, television, and journalism. Everything I've done professionally since I was 16 or 17 had a writing component to it in some way. I do a lot of freelance writing, whether it's marketing copy. I work with authors who self-publish their books, and I've done some ghostwriting. And what I've learned over the years is to adapt and try to stay current on technology. But there are some friendly tips and advice and things here, but I want to do something a little bit different. Rather than tell you what I think you should do, I'm going to turn this on its side. Imagine that you and your best friend have a summertime business. Picture yourself living maybe here in Starkville or in Jackson or in Gulfport or in Tupelo or Meridian, and you go home for the summer, and you and that best friend, let's say you have a swimming background. You all swam competitively in high school. You're both licensed lifeguards. You were able to teach swimming lessons, and because you had pools in your backyard, y'all know how to clean and maintain a swimming pool. So indulge me here. Say there's a good market for that, and y'all have done that through high school, a little bit at a time, and by the summer of your junior, senior year, y'all have a nice little business each summer waiting for you. It's something y'all work on and go home, and it works just as well as an internship because you're getting real world experience running a small business. Now, let's say that your best friend all at once isn't going to be able to work with you during the summer. You find this out with about 48 hours notice before it's Monday, and you've got swimming lessons and pools to clean and all those things. Once you finish panicking, what do? You gotta go out and hire somebody. Now maybe the person who's not gonna be with you, who maybe is gonna be traveling internationally that summer, has said, look, I'm sorry, don't kill me, don't hate me, but here are some names, here are a couple of people I know who sound interested. Let me tell you from personal experience, you think when you advertise for a job and somebody gets back with you and says, yeah, I'd like to talk to you, they're going to be on time, they're going to be impressive from a personal standpoint, they're going to be respectful. It doesn't always work like that. Let's say your first 2 interviews, remember you're stressing because you've got a day and a half or so to have somebody in place with you Monday to go to the other side of the city to get started working. You gotta vet this person. First person emails you back or texts you and says, I'm not interested after all. I think I want a relaxing summer, so I'm not gonna fool with this. Second person sends you a text message and says, I'm not gonna be able to do this either. Your third choice does show up or text you and says, I will be there. So y'all have a meeting, say at Nuke's restaurant at 2 o'clock, and you're there a couple of minutes early, get yourself a tea. 2:05, 2:10, 2:15, 2:20, and then this big old lumbering guy comes in, he's talking on his cell phone, walks up to the counter, yeah, there's a big truck thing in Forest this weekend, I think we're gonna go, I'll see you there. Look, I'm at Nuke's, I'm getting something to eat, I think I'm gonna be going to work cleaning pools for somebody this summer, so I'll talk to you real soon, okay? And by the time this person gets to you and you've realized in horror who you're about to interview, it's 2:25. And that guy sits down across from you and says, "What's up?" Think of yourself in this situation as the employer. What are you feeling right now? Angry? Insulted? Embarrassed? What am I doing here? I have gone through things like that in my professional life. I know anybody who's managed people and supervised them have had folks come completely unprepared and clueless for a job interview. I guess you would go to your next contestant and hope you found somebody in that situation you found yourself in fictionally at Nukes. What I've got here on the page for you hits some of the basics, and I think all of you know these things already. But first, be on time. Be on time for Dr. Ford's class. Be on time at church. Be on time when you go to work. Get yourself in the habit of being on time or a minute or two early everywhere and for everything. You do not lose street cred. You do not show weakness if you're on time. It's not cool to say, "I'll get there when I get there." You do that with the wrong professor, you walk in 3 or 5 minutes late often enough, you are going to get called out and embarrassed. And if you think that's rough in front of a bunch of classmates, wait until you're shamed by a possible employer. Don't ever feel entitled. Think about what you can do, because again, put yourself in the mind of the employer. The employer, most of the time, not all the time, but most of the time the employer is going to be a good person, works for a good company, and looking for good people. There's an old Head and Shoulders slogan line for those who use shampoo, for those who have hair, present company excluded. But Head and Shoulders slogan line is, you never get a second chance to make a first impression. That is so true. Our fictional guy at Nukes who walks in 20 minutes late as if it's the best day in the world and feels he's already gotten the job that he really doesn't want, that's not a good impression. You make an impression like that, imagine that person at Nukes trying to redeem himself with you. Could he do that? What would he have to do, especially in 24 hours, for you to hire him? Probably nothing. You probably get up and just walk out. Enjoy your truck show over the weekend and find somewhere else to go to work. First impression is so important. Good communication skills. And I know that everybody loves to send text messages and that even emails are for older people like me. But remember the thank you cards your parents and grandparents probably still ask you to write? It is such a big deal for an employer to get a thank you card. It's not ego gratification. It separates you. There are so few people who write cards, and my son can tell you that, well, have you written to Papa Joe and Grandmama yet and thanked him for that sweatshirt? I know you're never going to wear it, but it was a nice thing to do. Send the card. Do that when you apply for a job with somebody. A very close old friend of mine, a CPA, and I wrote a business article for the Clarion Ledger a couple of years ago about these very kinds of things. She said the thank you note has almost completely disappeared. She said, "Joe, I get 50 to 100 emails a day, and the well-written email is a good thing. The handwritten card won't take you 2 minutes to say, thank you so much for making time to see me. I would love to come to work for you." Or, even better, if you just dropped in to put a face with a name, please let me know if I can help you in the future. When you want to go to work for somebody, try to be prepared. Do a little bit of research. I'm a book publisher, and I get some very, very good queries from people who want their works of fiction published by me, who've done some research. My website is Dogwood Press, Dogwood like the tree, dogwoodpress.com, and it will take you literally 5 minutes to read it cover to cover. You know, this is not rocket science. It just tells what I do and what I'm looking for. And you'd be surprised at how many "Dear Publisher" I get. And I look to see who the email's from, and it says, "To undisclosed recipients." Please do not mass correspond with everybody or mass mail out. Individual correspondence, communication. Otherwise, folks are going to see right through what you're doing and you're going to get deleted. Now, a couple of other things before I tell you a couple of stories. Follow your dreams. Don't take no for an answer. There's a right way and a wrong way to approach people, and the more genuine you can be and the more research about what the company has and what you can bring it, the better chance you're going to have of not only getting gainfully employed, but doing what you love. Try to determine what you want to do. I can tell you, as somebody who is blessed to have a wonderful wife and a wonderful son, I've got it made. I learned a long time ago I was not cut out to be an 8 to 5, Monday through Friday, sit behind a desk guy doing the same thing over and over and over. The more challenges and the more fires to put out and the more different kinds of things I do, the more I enjoy it. I work well under deadlines. Not everybody does. But the more you can determine early on what you want to do, what you love to do, and get excited about it and find people who are looking for what you offer, the better chance you're going to have of gainful employment and a happy life, professionally and personally. So don't let anybody discourage you, and be adaptable. Learn what you can about technology and software. So let me tell you 2 stories. And my son has heard a lot of don't do what Joe did stories over the years. Here's a don't do what Joe did story. Long time ago, we're going to get in the Wayback Machine and go all the way back to 1981. And I was 16 and wanted to be on the radio, wanted to disc jockey more than anything in the world. And I managed to get on the Mississippi State University campus radio station for a month. You know how I did that? I didn't tell any lies, I just didn't tell the truth. Nobody ever asked if I was a high school student. Nobody ever asked if I had an ID or anything. So I didn't volunteer that I was a high school student. And I worked one summer on the air here at MSU for a month, and then some pinhead guy said, "Are you really in school here?" Okay, you got me. Well, I'm not going to tell or anything. He went right to the department head, and I was summarily taken off the air. But I had some experience. And there were 2 commercial radio stations in Starkville at the time, and one of them was across the street from Starkville High School. And I've been told that was the station that hired folks who didn't have as much experience, sort of a training ground. So after driver's ed, one Saturday afternoon that summer, I went over to that radio station, 1 car in the parking lot, front door of the building is open. I walked in there and looked around, and there's a long hallway, and I could hear some music in the back. And I get back there, and there's a guy with hair down to about his waist, and he looks sort of bored, and he's playing the music on the radio. And I talked to him for a minute, told him who I was and what I wanted. And he said, "Bruce is the guy that does the hiring. He's on the morning show. Make an appointment with Bruce. Make an appointment." He didn't say it like that, but I wish he had. I wish he'd stamped that on my head. Did I make an appointment? No. Did I drive down there that Monday morning at 7:15 without an appointment? Yes. Did I open the front door, which was wide open, even though there were about 5 cars in the parking lot? Yes. Did I walk all the way to the back when I heard voices and actually blunder right into the middle of the morning show guys doing some on-air stuff? Yes. There was a man sitting off to the side who did not have the headphones on, clearly was not part of the on-air thing, but was looking at a newspaper, and he got my attention and pointed. And there was this, you see where the exit sign is. Imagine something about that big, a little bit wider, that says "on air," and it was all lit up. So they finished a few seconds later, and this great big guy, I mean, me and Daniel put together, gets up out of this chair, big old tall, long, everybody had long hair, long-haired guy, turns around and looks at me. I said, "You're Bruce?" "Yep." "Well, I'm Joe." And whatever the guy's name was Saturday afternoon. He said he was going to mention my name to you, and he said you might need somebody to work on the weekends, and I worked out of the Mississippi State Station for a month, and here's my tape. Or something like that. Just overflowing with passion and excitement, and being a stupid 16-year-old kid that had not made an appointment. Bruce took the air check, the tape with me on it, the only copy of it I had, held it in his hand, looked at me and gave me a little grin. And for about 1 second, I thought, I'm going to be hired at this place right now. And he took the tape and threw it into the air. There were record albums, your grandparents might remember those, floor to ceiling and shelves, and at the top of the shelf in the corner was this giant planter. It had what looked like a small tree in it that had been probably dead since the Eisenhower administration. This horrible looking plant, and I watched my cassette sail through the air in this little clear plastic box, and it hit the side of the planter and exploded. The cassette case broke, and I could see the cassette land somewhere around that dingy old dead plant. And I looked at Bruce, and he ripped me up one side and down the other and told me to get lost. And I went home, tail between my legs, probably in tears, and told my mother what had happened, and she didn't understand until she got out of me that I hadn't made an appointment. And the horror-stricken look on her face was punishment enough. All she said was, "Why didn't you see when it would be a good time for him to see?" Okay, I know you're not going to do that. Just understand, the more planning and research you can do, and try to get somebody to sit down with you face to face for just a couple of minutes, even if it's understood they don't have a job opening. They may think back later and say, I really liked meeting that nice Mississippi State student. I may give that person a call. One more quick story. Fast forward to 2014. My son knows this story. Older couple. And like I told Eliza, I have found that the people who do not do what I ask in terms of submitting book queries, when they want me to consider publishing them, the people who absolutely do not follow the very simple guidelines are older people. You think I'm older? These are people that are, 20, 30, 40. This couple, much, much older than I am. Our landline and my personal cell phone are not anywhere on my website. There's Facebook, nothing. You can't find that. So what some enterprising folks have done at times is to, especially if I've been written up in the Clarion Ledger or somewhere else about publishing, there are people who will do some research and dig up our landline and try to call me at home. Don't do that. And I will not talk to those people. And my wife, who's a very nice person, will eventually talk to them if they leave 4 or 5 voicemails. I kid you not. And I've listened to her from my recliner, and she's on the couch, and she's having a conversation with people like that, and I can overhear, "Ma'am, I just want to talk to him." It doesn't work that way. Dallas Cowboys owner Jerry Jones. Would you ever try to get Jerry Jones' physical address and drop in unannounced, or try to get his landline and call him when you want to go to work for the Dallas Cowboys? No, you would go through the channels. Of course you would. That's all I ask. And I have found that people of that generation who, I hate computers, Mr. Lee, and I don't like using emails, and I will never have a cell phone. Learn from that. That's antiquated thinking. That's not smart. Trying to tell the person who's thinking about hiring you how he or she should be handling applicants, that's not a good way to make inroads with that person. This woman was representing her husband. She did all the talking, and she explained to my wife that he was a pilot and he'd written a book about the airline industry or something. My wife kept saying, "Send my husband an email. He's very good about responding to them." No email. Year later, first Mississippi Book Festival, which they have every year in Jackson at the state capitol in August. My wife and I are setting up our tent. We have an exhibitor's tent. Some of the authors I've published are there with me each year. We sell books. It's great networking. We meet lots of nice people. And we got to meet this couple in person who dropped in right before the festival began. And he's the author, he hardly said anything, but he handed me a satchel, something that would hold something about this big. And his wife said, "Well, look in there, Mr. Lee, this is his book." I opened it and looked in. Postcards, photographs, pieces of handwritten notes on all kinds of paper, pages of spiral notebook paper that had been torn out with typed and handwritten things on there. These were scraps that, were he to work with somebody and hired them to get everything organized, would take months or a year or more to get everything ready. And I said, I absolutely cannot work with this. This is not a genre I publish, and we're working here. We're about to start. I can't, and she huffed off and he went off with her, and I figured we'd never see them again. And I didn't. But last summer, can't remember if my son John was home, but my wife was. She's a school teacher. Guess what those folks did? Dropped by my house, unannounced. How on earth did they find out where I lived? I don't want to know. But I was at a lunch meeting and my wife texted and said, you won't believe who's here. And she explained that the wife, the husband, sitting there in the idling car. But the woman said to my wife, we could not find a physical address for Dogwood Press, so we wanted to come talk to Mr. Lee in person and thought we would come here. And I told my wife when I got home, if they come back, I'm not going to the door. If I have to go to the door and talk to them, I will call the sheriff. Does that sound outrageous on my behalf? Maybe. Put yourself in the role of the employer. Would you want somebody, no matter how passionate they are, doing that? It tells you they're not willing to follow directions. I don't care if you don't like email. I get 10 to 15 queries a week from people who want me to consider publishing them. I respond to every single email without fail. But that's how I prefer to be contacted. And I'm not going to be lectured by anybody about, well, I don't like emails or cell phones. Please take all of that as friendly advice. I'm not trying to talk down to you or tell you anything you don't know. I've just always felt that it helps to hear the obvious presented sometimes in real world scenarios. But think, when you apply for work, put yourself in the role of the employer. Think about what an employer is going to be looking for, and I guarantee you will make a really, really good impression. Thank you very much for your time, and I hope you enjoy my friend Daniel here.
Good afternoon. I appreciate you giving me a few minutes to kind of talk to you a little bit. Dr. Ford, thank you for allowing me the opportunity. My name is Daniel Morgan. I'm a senior coordinator with the Career Center here on campus. Career Center is over in Montgomery Hall, right behind McCool. Go to the front door, up the elevator, third floor, opens up right into the front of the Career Center, so it's pretty easy to find. I am the liaison within the Career Center for the College of Education and also the College of Arts and Sciences in regards to the social sciences, because arts and sciences is huge, so we split it in half between natural sciences and social sciences. I work with all the social sciences. I was here as an undergraduate from 1995 through 1999, and I was a broadcasting major while I was here. I didn't start off as a broadcasting major. I started off in business information systems for some unknown reason. I have no idea why I chose BIS as my major, but I did. And I stayed in BIS for, I think it was maybe 2 weeks. And then I changed over to communication, which was a much better choice for me because, to be honest with you, math has never been my best subject, science has never been my best subject, but I've always really enjoyed interpersonal communication. I've really enjoyed being in a position where I could work with other people, be in a position where I could be in some sort of assistance or whatever it may be with other individuals, whether it's in a group setting, one-on-one, whatever it might have been. So that's something that just for me became just my calling. It was something very natural, to me. Had a lot of great instructors while I was here. I know you guys have really great instructors as well. And I can clearly remember, and most of you may have had a class with Dr. Goodman. He just retired a year or so ago, not too long ago. Him getting very animated if you ever heard someone say that it was the Department of Communications. You put an S at the end of it. You would get very mad and say, it's not communications, it's communication, singular, okay? Because he said the communications is the technical side of things, the literal wire connections, transmitting signals kind of aspect, where communication is the literal interactions with other people and how you can affect someone else's opinion, how you can affect their state of mind, whatever way you want to kind of think about it. So that was always fun to sit in these classes and see them just get real riled up about some things, and that was one of them. When I graduated from Mississippi State, I did have a great opportunity. I worked at the campus radio station here, MSV, just right over there by the University Florist. Started off as a volunteer, just spending countless hours in there, listening to CDs, making recommendations as far as songs and that sort of thing, and then got myself the DJ shift. The first one I had, prime time, it was midnight to 2 a.m., 4 nights a week, which was awful. I couldn't stand it because I was usually in bed by 10:30. I was never a night owl or anything like that, but it was the first opportunity I had to be on the radio, and I thought it was the coolest thing. So from midnight to 2 a.m., Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday nights, I was up at that radio station broadcasting to probably nobody, but it was a lot of fun. But I did have one woman, there's a woman from West Point that would call me every single night that I was on just to chat. She never made a song request or asked what the weather was going to be the next day. She just wanted to chat. So at least I knew she was listening, and I could, play stuff. I didn't know this woman from, anybody else on the street, but she just really enjoyed calling and just talking, So, I'd talk to her on the phone a little while there in the on-air room. Then I'd say, hey, I've got to go on the air. Hold on a second. And I'd set the phone down, and then I'd get done saying whatever it was, get back on the phone, talk to her a little bit more, and it'd be 5-10 minutes, but every single night I could almost guarantee that she would be calling. And years later I would think about that and just think about, maybe I was in a position where I didn't want to think about the fact that maybe I was the only person that she was talking to. Maybe I wasn't the only person that she felt, for whatever reason, comfortable calling and just having a conversation about her day or what was going on in her life, or just to have somebody to communicate with. But that very well may have been the case. So at the time I didn't really take that into consideration. I didn't really see that for what it may have been and appreciate that. But years later it really did make an impact on me, because as you go through your career in school, you start to think about things like that. What am I doing on a daily basis that's having an impact on somebody else? Maybe it's something that you don't even realize is having an impact on somebody, or maybe it's something that you very well know, I'm in a position right now to really make a positive communication aspect and impact on this person's life. So those are some things that I would try to think about going through my graduate program. After I graduated in my undergrad, worked at WMSV for about 4 years as a program director. And I'll tell you another quick story. As program director, I was, I went from going from midnight to 2 a.m. to working 6 a.m. in the morning. I was the first person in. I'd open up, I'd get things going, and that's, sort of thing. And then at 7:30, I would always do the news from 7:30 to 8 o'clock. I was the anchor for the news in the morning, okay? My DJ name was Colonel Cade, okay? My middle name is Cade. And then my grandfather in WW2, World War II, was a bomber over in Italy and France, and he was a colonel. And his last name was Cade, so that's why my middle name is Cade. So I did it in, kind of an honor to him. So my DJ name was Colonel Cade. Then magically at 7:30, I became Daniel Morgan for 30 minutes as I did the news, because I was more real, more, pertinent. And then at 8 o'clock, when the news was over, I'm back to Colonel Cade again. Sounding the exact same. I didn't change my voice or anything. So I don't know who I was trying to fool, but that's just the way I did it. But another cool thing that I would do, and this is something I don't want you to tell him, don't go to the radio station now and tell them that I used to do this, okay? Where the radio station is located, you've got the florist right there. The bakery, used to be right around the corner where Moe's is now, okay? I had a set of songs that I could pull from, that I could put in, that would go for maybe 15 minutes. Just a nice 15-minute set of songs. And I'm still the only one there, right? But I would put those songs on and leave the station and walk around the corner to the bakery and get a croissant and some coffee or a donut or something like that. And then, try to be back before the music ended so there wasn't dead air or anything like that. So please don't go tell anybody that I left the station unattended for 15 minutes or so and went and got coffee around the corner at the bakery, because, you need to be there in case somebody walks in that has nefarious means or, motivations or whatever it may be. But it was a lot of fun. After that, I changed careers, okay? I went from working in broadcasting. This was something I really felt like was my natural calling in life. And I changed careers because of a woman, all right? I met my wife at the radio station. She was doing her internship. I finally got the nerve up to ask her out, and it went from there, okay? Her father owned a furniture import company in Columbus, about 30 minutes east of here. And he offered me a position. It was kind of a family-run business and that sort of thing. I was new to the family, or wanted at that time to become a member of the family. I hadn't asked her to marry me yet. So he offered me this job, and I took it, as to kind of an in to the family. I had no interest in furniture, none at all. I could care less about furniture, but this was my opportunity to really make an impression on her side of the family. I thought it was the best move I could make. And it did what it needed to do as far as paying bills and whatnot for a few years. And then I left, went back to school, got my master's degree in sports administration. Again, whole different type of profession than what I had done before. And I worked with a GA position with athletic academics here on campus over in the Templeton building. And then they offered me a full-time position. I did that for about 10 years. And I left that job and I came over to the Career Center. So I've already changed careers, what was that, 4 times, in just, 20, 25 years or so. And a lot of people that they come to visit me in the Career Center to talk to me about maybe their resume or their cover letter, or they're getting ready for an interview or whatever it may be. And Joe had some really great points about the interview process and things to do and things not to do. But they would ask me, what am I supposed to do? I'm getting ready to graduate. I've got a good idea of where I want to go, what I want to do, what profession specifically as far as job title I'm looking for. But what if it doesn't work out? I'm nervous. What if I get into it and it's not what I thought it would be. It's not what I felt like it was all built up to be. And I get about a year in and I don't like it and I need to get out. What can I do? And I always tell them it's okay. It is okay. There are other things that you can do, all right? The average number of times that a person changes professions during their professional career is somewhere between 4 and 5 times, okay? That's totally changing professions. That's not changing job titles within an industry. That's totally doing 180s, 4 or 5 different times during their professional career, okay? And I'm not encouraging you to do that. I'm just telling you that to let you know that it is okay. And that's the great thing about being in the major that you're in. Communication is one of those majors that I love because yes, I'm an alumnus, but also the skills that you build in being a communication major are so transferable that you can do all kinds of different types of jobs, okay? So when you're sitting thinking, okay, I'm in this major, this is my concentration, I have to find something that's specifically and concrete, right under that specific demographic and that sort of thing, that's all well and good, but just understand that there's a lot of things that you can do with the skills that you've built since you've been in your major program, okay? We do have an event coming up next week. I'll do a little promo for that. It's the Career Days on campus. It's over in the Humphrey Coliseum. The first day, it's over 2 days, Tuesday and Wednesday next week. The first day is for all non-technical majors, which is everybody here, okay? The second day, Wednesday, all tech majors like engineering and that sort of thing. Something I would highly recommend that you do is take the time, if you haven't already done this in semesters past, and go to the career fair, okay? Walk around and just experience all those different students, the employers. We're gonna have close to 200 employers from all over the country coming to speak to Mississippi State students, to recruit you, to find out what you bring to the table as far as your skills, your strengths, to separate you from the crowd, okay? And talk to them. Talk to them about your skills. Talk to them about your strengths. Keep an open mind as far as what you're there for. What are your goals while you're at the career fair? What are your goals as far as a career in general? Try not to box yourself in too much because like I said, you have applicable skills, transferable skills through your degree program that you've earned and built upon that could be effective in so many different types of situations, working environments, job titles. I guarantee you 10 years from now, a vast majority of students coming out of college are going to be working in job titles that don't even exist today. Okay, I read a story a few weeks ago that said something in regards of 40 to 50% of jobs in 10 years don't even exist today. as far as the specific job title, the duties involved in completing that sort of job and that sort of thing. So just think about that and think about the skills that you bring to the table that you could apply to all kinds of different things, okay? A lot of you guys may be PR majors, you may be broadcasting, journalism, whatever it may be. Think about those strengths that you have in regards to interpersonal communication. There's a lot of different, they call them competencies, but you can call them skills. The companies all over the country really hold valuable, and there's about 7 or 8 that they really high point a lot of the time, but communication in both oral and written form is one of the main ones, okay? So being able to communicate effectively is such a key in almost any kind of job or industry that you could have, okay? There's an author and a playwright named George Bernard Shaw, and one of his quotes that I'm probably going to murder, but in a way I'm going to try to get it out, is the biggest mistake and misinterpretation in regards to communication is the belief that it actually took place. That's one of the biggest mistakes that you can make. So being able to communicate your message effectively in both oral and written form is a really key component to almost any kind of job that you can get after you graduate. Okay? So when you're looking for those jobs, when you're looking at job descriptions, right? You're getting to the point where you feel like I'm ready to start throwing out applications. Just remember, if you don't match every single one of those job descriptions, that's okay. If you don't have the required 3 years of experience, that's okay. Apply for it anyway. Because I guarantee you, you have skills that you could bring to the table for that specific job that could set you apart from other people that are applying for that same position, okay? Don't be afraid to stick your neck out there and apply for things that maybe give you a bit of pause, a little bit of hesitation, all right? Because you do have the skills, you do have the ability to compete for a lot of these jobs, all right? Now, I like the point that Joe made about the thank you note. I want to throw that out there because he's right, it is a lost art, okay? A lot of the things that we used to write down, a lot of the things that we used to communicate in written form are now in oral form, okay? And vice versa. It just depends on the environment you're working in. So being able to take the time to sit down, say, 72 hours after an interview, and write a thank you note by hand. Just get a blank thank you note in a box from Walmart. It says thank you on the outside and it's blank on the inside, just saying, Dear Mr. and Mrs. So-and-so, thank you so much for the opportunity to meet with you the other day. I really enjoyed our conversation. I hope I can prove to myself as the most viable, candidate for this position. Again, here's my contact information. I'd love to follow up with you again and continue the conversation. Sincerely, first name, last name. Put a stamp on it. Throw it in the mail. That makes such a big impact because it shows that person that you're professional enough and you're already invested enough in that potential position to take the time to sit down and write a thank you note, which not many people do. And that can make a huge impression, okay? So those are just some things to think about as you're starting that process. Some of you may have already started it. Some of you are just now thinking about, where do I want to go? What do I want to do? And just know there's a lot of things out there, okay? So don't get afraid to apply for things that you feel maybe a little hesitant about, because I guarantee you, you've got skills. You've got strengths that you could apply to that position, okay? And that's a lot of what we try to do at the Career Center, is help you understand what your specific skills and strengths are. So when you get ready to write that resume, that cover letter, start calling and applying for positions and going to interviews, you feel as confident as you can in going in there and saying, I'm the right person for the job, and these are the reasons why. Okay, so that's what we try to do. So I would encourage you, and I know I'm plugging the Career Center, but I work there, they pay my bills. So I would encourage you to get in touch with us and just let us know what you need, what we can do to help you, to make you feel more confident going into all that process. Okay? Great, thank you.
Directed toward both of them or one of them? Anybody? Okay, well, I have a question. What are y'all's thoughts on grad school? I know that when you said you went to grad school, did you go to grad school as well? Do you think that's beneficial is that something employers expect these days? Or is it a bonus to resume?
I think with grad school, it all depends on what your ultimate career goal is, okay? A lot of the majors that fall under the umbrella of communication, yes, they have minimum requirements in regards to education, okay? But the vast majority of them really pay a lot of attention and put a lot of weight in experience, in the skills that you bring with you to the table, okay? Dr. Goodman, I mentioned at the beginning, was my undergraduate academic advisor when I was in school. And I remember very clearly having many conversations with him about going to grad school. There was a school up in Illinois, Southern Illinois University, that has a really good broadcasting graduate program that I was interested in. I said, Dr. Goodman, what do you think about, graduating early, getting on up to Illinois, jumping straight into a grad program and getting that master's degree, and then certainly I'd be ready to tackle the world by then. And every time we talked about it, he would just say, Daniel, look, after you graduate, work for a little while. Get your feet wet, get some experience under your belt. And this was the advice he had for me, and it applied to me. It may not apply to everybody. But he said it would be good for you to get out and just experience life a little bit. Spend a few years paying some bills, literally and figuratively, getting some experience under your belt. Getting to the point where you can find your specific niche area that you really want to focus on. And then if you feel like it would benefit you to go to a grad program, then by all means, find a program that's the right fit for you and then go for it. Because it may be a situation where you say, this is right where I want to be. I'm getting the experience I need to really build upon, use as stepping stones until I reach my ultimate goal professionally. Or you may say, this is great, I can see myself working here for a few years, but I really do want to get that master's degree or beyond as just a life goal. It's something that I just want to accomplish for myself. So I don't know if I'm really answering your question, but it really comes down to what you personally feel would be the most beneficial. This is not a degree program where you necessarily have to go straight into a graduate program, okay? There are others on this campus that it's basically set in stone that once you graduate from your undergrad, you go straight into a professional school type of situation. But experience is such a key part of what you do. So if you have opportunities to do internships during your undergrad program especially, that is a key component to getting your feet in the door, to get that experience in the actual working environment so you know more of what to expect. You can apply for some of those jobs saying, yes, I don't have 3 years experience full-time in this profession, but look at these internships I did. Look what I've accomplished during those times that are very applicable to a full-time position within your company, okay? So with grad school, it really is each individual's decision what you want to do. If you just are bound and determined to go to grad school, go for it. Find the best program for you and shoot for the moon. But if you want to graduate, try to find a full-time position somewhere and work for a while, that's awesome too. So it really comes down to each individual person.
I think everything Daniel said is spot on. I'll add a couple of things to that. Only go to grad school if you're doing it for the right reasons, and when I say the right reasons, because you've got a plan. If you don't have a plan, and I've talked to countless people who said, I don't know what I want to do when I get out of college, I may go to grad school. All that may do is put off you getting out into the work world. And what Daniel said that's so important, if you're thinking about going and you're not sure, work a little bit. It may give you a whole different perspective on when or even if you need to go to graduate school. As far as a master's degree or beyond, as an employer for me looking at possible hires as writers, it's great to have on the resume, but I'm looking for writing skills. And I've talked to a lot of writers, young writers who've graduated with a master's in fine arts. And if the writing skills are good enough to get the master's of fine arts, that's fine. But if there's no fiction writing experience, the Masters of Fine Arts isn't necessarily going to immediately put that person in contention for a book contract. I've still got to see good writing skills. And internships, as Daniel said, are crucial. Get yourself an internship where you do some writing. If you love writing fiction, you might be able to work your way into something where you donate pieces of yours that get published and you're around quality writers and instructors, and that's how you build that skill set. And that's what I'm going to be looking for, much more so than Well, Mr. Lee, I've never had anything published, but I do have a master's degree in such and such.
Anyone else? Dr. Ford?
Would y'all elaborate a little more about interviewing with anybody who'll talk to you? I know, Daniel, you were talking about this, and some of your predecessors way before you were in school here were telling me, just go interview with people, go to a career fair. If they're open to talking to you, then interview with them. I interview with anything you can think about just about who came to the Career Center. If it said communication or open, I talk to them. And my friends started joking and calling me Mr. Interview because I would either wear my Navy suit or my gray suit to class. Oh, you got another interview today. But I would talk to anybody. It was a great experience because I learned how to interview better, even with the places I really didn't want to work.
Yeah, exactly, and that's a good point. And with interviewing, you have to remember that interviewing is a weird, unnatural situation to find yourself in. You know, it's not something that you find yourself doing every day. You don't sit across the table or desk from somebody every day having those kinds of conversations. You don't sit with your friends at lunch in the union and all of a sudden they ask you, tell me a strength that you feel like you have and also a weakness. That's a weird question, right? You know, you don't have those conversations all the time. So doing like Dr. Ford said and practicing, planning, practicing, and preparation, those 3 Ps are the biggest impact you're going to have as far as a successful, interview situation, because that gets you into the point where you feel more comfortable with an uncomfortable situation, right? So the more you practice it, the more you plan, the more you prepare for it, and that may be like Dr. Ford did, where you just go interview for anything and everything to literally be in the moment, be in the situation, and just getting that good in-person experience with it could be the most beneficial for you. If you're not the type of individual that feels comfortable doing that, maybe you're a little more introverted, maybe you feel like, I'd rather just sit at home and maybe practice with a friend or a family member, have them just do some role playing where they're the interviewer and I'm the interviewee, that's perfectly fine too, okay? Because that's what's gonna benefit you the most is just that practice. The feeling of sitting down and just having them ask you the questions and just hearing yourself answering those questions. Answering the tell me about yourself, answering the strengths and weaknesses question, answering the why do you feel you're the best candidate for this position question, okay? Because the more you say it, it's like muscle memory. The more you practice something, the more natural it's gonna be. It's gonna be where you just naturally come out with the answer that you feel is the best one for you, okay? I would even recommend doing kind of a dress rehearsal. Right? He mentioned coming to class wearing one of his 2 suits. Do the same thing, not maybe necessarily at a class, but when you're practicing, maybe with a friend or family member, dress the part. Put on the clothes that you plan to wear to the actual interview, because it may be an outfit like this jacket. I don't wear this jacket all the time, and it feels kind of weird. I don't move the same as I do in my shorts and t-shirts that I'm more comfortable with. But the more you wear it in the situation, the more comfortable it's going to be the day of the interview. You're going to feel what it's like to wear that outfit, how it moves, how it restricts your arms a little bit more than normal and that sort of thing. But if you practice with it, it'll feel better when you're in the situation for real. It won't be as distracting. So, but I highly recommend practicing and just planning and doing that good preparation. So that's a really good idea.
Interviewing is not easy. I told you the story about me blundering into that radio station long ago. But most people out there, I like to think, want to help, want to talk to people who are in college or getting ready to come out of college, because 25 years down the road, all of you are going to be where we are, looking at potential college graduates or trying to help people graduate and get everybody moved forward. At the Mississippi Book Festival in 2017, a young lady, I think she graduated from Belhaven, and she walked up and introduced herself and seemed very shy. And there were a couple of other people in the tent. She kept stepping back, and I finally said, "How are you doing?" And she finally came out and said that she had done some writing in college and had a couple of columns published in the campus newspaper there and was working on a book of poetry. And poetry is not a genre that I publish, but we talked for 20 or 25 minutes in between a couple of people buying books here and there and some other things. And she came back this year with her parents and they bought one of my books, which was very kind, but introduced me to her parents, and her mother leaned in and said, "You did my daughter so much good just talking to her." She said she was so afraid. I said, "Why be afraid of little old me? I'm not running Random House or anything here." But she said approaching an actual book publisher was a little intimidating, and I said, no, the people I know in the business would like to help and like to encourage. So don't be bashful about, and again, make an appointment, don't do what Joe did at 16, but most folks in situations like that would like to help. And I'm honestly interested in talking to anybody about writing who has questions. I don't know a lot of things. I know a lot less than I probably think I do. I learn something every day though when I have conversations with folks like that. So again, follow your dreams, and if you think you can pick up something from somebody like that, just go up and ask and have a conversation with them. It doesn't have to feel like a formal interview.
And I'll tell you an embarrassing story on myself in regards to an interview, just to show you how planning and preparation and practicing can, not doing those things can really kind of be detrimental. When I was in high school, I was an 18-year-old senior, and I was in line for a scholarship, an academic scholarship to Mississippi State, and it was one that was specifically set up for students that scored between whatever the scores were. It was a 3 or 4 point range on the ACT. They were coming to Mississippi State. Didn't matter what your major was going to be and all that. It was just for that specific population. And I made it into the top 3. There were going to be 2 people within the state that were going to get the scholarships, and I made it into the top 3. Okay, they would bring the top 3 in for an in-person interview with the committee. There's about 6 or 7 people in the committee that were going to interview each individual person, and then they would decide who would be awarded one of the 2 scholarships, or 2 of the 3 rather. So I went in for the interview, and I thought I did okay for the first question or 2, but they were pretty general about, to tell us about yourself, where you go to school, those kinds of basic kinds of warm-up questions. And then they asked me, why do you want to go to Mississippi State University? What is it about MSU that makes you want to go there for school? I had never even thought of that question. I never even thought about, why do I want to go to Mississippi State? I had no idea. I just drew a total blank. And to be honest with you, this sounds like I'm making this up. The only thing I came out with was that the grass was really green and it was just really pretty on campus, and they've got trees and stuff. They just are really attractive, and that's the only bumbling, stupid answer that I could come out with. And it was horribly downhill from there. So that was not enough to impress them, to show them that I deserved that scholarship. So I didn't get the scholarship. And afterwards I really kicked myself. My parents were really hoping I would get that scholarship. And I really wish I'd prepared better, because I was horribly underprepared, and it wouldn't have taken too much time. It wouldn't have taken so much effort to have prepared better, and I could have certainly represented myself a lot more. I may still not have gotten the scholarship, but to this day I'm still a little embarrassed by how my answers came out. So I'll just tell that on myself.
A couple of quick things I didn't include, if I may. Be yourself. Don't try to be anybody else. Be who you are. Be as comfortable in your skin as you can. There's no one like you. And if you try to be something or somebody else, a savvy interviewer is going to sniff that up real fast. Be proud of what you bring to the table. Be willing to learn, but be yourself. One quick thing, totally off the subject, social media. Good IT people can go back and dig anything up that was put on the internet. Pretty much anything. You hear about somebody who gets into the public eye, and then a day later, the #1 trending thing on all the social media is something that person said or did back 10 years ago, 20 years ago, 30 years ago. Don't put on social media something you wouldn't tell or show your parents, your pastor, your best friends, a room full of adults, anybody you'd like to go to work for. If you aren't proud of it and you're not willing to show it to all those people and discuss it, it might not be worth putting on the internet, because once it's out there, you're not going to be able to undo it. You can delete it all you want and delete it again, but a lot of things get dug up and then they go viral. And then you've got to answer for it. And maybe it's embarrassing, just a tip.
Hi, my name is Sean. Just a quick question. So whether it's news, media, news, entertainment, or sports, like, is it good in a sense, like either interview or just trying to get a job, like whether you have a YouTube channel or just another source of information where they can, like, if you just have work, like, do y'all look into that? Like your own private work?
Yeah, absolutely. And one thing that you can maybe consider, say on your resume, I've seen a lot of people in the last few years do this. At the top of your resume, you've got your heading, right? Your contact information, your name, all that good thing. A lot of individuals have started within their heading, maybe they'll leave off their physical address, and instead in that space, they'll put a link to their YouTube page or their LinkedIn profile or maybe an e-portfolio, something like that. Any sort of electronic media like that that shows examples of their work, that shows, skills that they've developed and different things that they maybe produced or whatever it may be, so that when they submit their application, a lot of times you're going to also submit your resume electronically, your cover letter electronically. They can pull that resume up, click on that link, and get more examples of work that you've done, more skills that you have, accomplishments that you've gotten up to this point. So if you have something like a YouTube page that you've really put a lot of work into, that you feel really shows some of the experience that you have and some of the skills and strengths that you could bring to the table, then absolutely, I would include some of that.
I would agree with that wholeheartedly. And for what I do as a publisher, one of the writers I published back 8-9 years ago sent me a link. He initially contacted me by email and asked if we could get together and talk sometime, but he had a website and a link to a talk he had given. He had my attention, and I clicked on it. He said, "This will take you 2.5 minutes to watch. If you have nothing else to do, Mr." Good humored thing, but I watched it. He was a really good speaker. And it really didn't have a whole lot to do with his fiction, which was humorous short stories, but it showed me that he would do a good job giving off-the-cuff talks. And I guess to tie that into what Daniel said, you have the attention of somebody who's asking you what you do and what your skill set is. Don't be bashful. There's a nice, comfortable, genuine, humble way to present yourself. But while you've got the opportunity, you put everything out there. You have your elevator speech ready about what you do and what your skills are. And if one of your best attributes is a YouTube page that shows off different things you can do, yeah, by all means include it. And the link that guy put into the query he sent me didn't get him the publishing contract by itself, certainly, but it was a nice way to imagine him going out and doing things publicly once we were up and running.
Anybody else have any questions? All right, let's give a round of applause.